And that's
So
by
what is
design.
it? Who is this person, the Sean Combs, that we don't know?
We have yet to find out.
The narrative surrounding Sean Diddy Combs and his recent legal battles paints a vivid picture of a man whose carefully crafted public persona is unraveling under the weight of serious allegations and a dramatic courtroom episode. The story, as it unfolds, is not just about one hearing or one charge, but a culmination of years of scrutiny, lawsuits, and a shifting public perception that has left Combs exposed in ways few could have predicted. For those who have followed his career over the past 2 decades, the invitation to come along for the ride feels less like entertainment and more like a front-row seat to a slow-motion collapse of an empire built on music, charisma, and influence. The courtroom scene described is not just a moment of legal consequence, but a spectacle that revealed a side of Combs rarely seen, one of vulnerability, desperation, and raw emotion. The day of the hearing was unlike any other in Combs' long history of navigating public life. He entered the courtroom, and immediately the atmosphere felt charged. Observers noted a stark difference in his demeanor. He appeared diminished, not in stature but in spirit, as if the cumulative pressure of legal troubles had finally taken its toll. The room was filled with a diverse crowd, media eager to capture every moment, victims seeking justice, former associates who had once been part of his inner circle but now kept their distance, and curious onlookers drawn to the high-profile nature of the case. The tension was palpable, with some victims visibly emotional at the sight of Combs, while others sat stoically, arms crossed, ready for whatever was to come. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the occasional shuffle of papers or the soft murmurs of anticipation. When the judge entered, the gravity of the situation became undeniable. This was no routine hearing, no minor legal skirmish that could be brushed off with a fine or a settlement. The stakes were monumental, with Combs facing charges that could dismantle his legacy and freedom. The legal walls had been closing in for months, if not years. Lawsuits had piled up, allegations had grown more severe, and testimonies from those closest to him had begun to surface, painting a picture of a man whose private life was far more troubling than his public image suggested. The courtroom was not just a stage for legal proceedings, but a crucible where Combs' past actions were laid bare, scrutinized, and judged. The sentencing process itself was a point of contention, marked by a confusing back and forth that only heightened the drama. Initially, the sentencing was scheduled for October 3rd, a date that seemed set in stone. But then, unexpectedly, Combs' legal team pushed for an earlier date, September 22nd, hoping to expedite the process and perhaps limit the media frenzy or the emergence of new evidence. The strategy was clear: move quickly, serve time, and possibly leverage credit for time already spent in custody since his arrest in September. However, the prosecutors resisted, arguing they needed more time to complete a comprehensive pre-sentencing report. This report, a detailed examination of Combs' life, his family, finances, work history, and even psychological profile, was critical to the judge's decision. It wasn't just about the charges, but about understanding the man behind them. Interviews with friends, former employees, and others close to Combs were part of this process, ensuring the judge had a full picture before delivering a sentence. Ultimately, the court sided with the prosecutors, pushing the sentencing back to October 3rd, a decision that added to the mounting pressure on Combs. The charges themselves were severe, with Combs facing a maximum of 10 years per count of transportation for prostitution, though sentencing guidelines suggested a range of 51 to 63 months, or roughly 4 to 5 years. His defense team, however, argued for a significantly lighter sentence, aiming for 21 to 27 months, which, with credit for time served, could have seen him released in under a year. The possibility of consecutive sentences loomed large, potentially extending his time behind bars to a decade or more per count. The uncertainty of the judge's final decision kept everyone on edge, including Combs, whose demeanor in the courtroom betrayed his growing anxiety. What set this hearing apart, however, was not just the sentencing debate but the revelations that emerged during the proceedings. Testimonies from former assistants, employees, and associates painted a chilling picture of Combs' world. One assistant recounted being woken in the middle of the night, not for routine work but to destroy evidence, files, digital records, anything that could incriminate Combs. The description was stark, likening the task to cleaning up a crime scene. Prosecutors also detailed allegations of freak-offs, events where young women were allegedly flown in on private jets for what were described as orchestrated, drug-fueled sexual encounters. These were not industry parties or music video shoots, but private gatherings where manipulation and coercion were alleged to have taken place. One woman, defying a non-disclosure agreement, testified about her experiences, risking legal consequences to speak out. Her testimony, along with others, included specific details, dates, locations, and the meticulous cleanup that followed, including the removal of drug paraphernalia and the confiscation of phones to ensure silence. The prosecution's case was bolstered by audio recordings that left the courtroom reeling. In one clip, Combs was allegedly heard issuing commands, demanding silence, and threatening those who failed to comply. The voice was described as cold, almost unrecognizable to those accustomed to his polished public persona. For many in the room, these recordings shifted the narrative from speculation to undeniable reality. The allegations were no longer abstract. They were grounded in first-hand accounts and evidence that painted Combs as the orchestrator of a system designed to protect his interests at any cost. The climax came when the judge delivered the sentence: 35 years in federal prison. The words landed like a thunderbolt, silencing the room for a moment before chaos erupted. Combs' reaction was immediate and visceral. He rose from his seat, shouting, slamming the table, and pacing uncontrollably. Witnesses described it as a full-blown meltdown, a stark contrast to the composed figure he typically presented. Security moved quickly to surround him, not out of fear of violence, but uncertainty about what he might do next. The judge, maintaining an air of calm authority, continued to read the ruling, setting restrictions and denying bail, citing Combs' history of violence and disregard for the law. The lack of special treatment, the absence of any leniency, hit Combs hard. Reporters noted that he seemed to age visibly in those moments, the weight of the sentence stripping away the veneer of invincibility he had cultivated for years. The courtroom was a microcosm of the broader drama surrounding Combs. His family, including his children and mother, were present, their emotions raw and visible. As the verdict was read, Combs fell to his knees, appearing to pray, while his children clapped and his defense team, overcome with emotion, embraced. One attorney was reported to have been in tears, a testament to the intensity of the moment. The gallery, too, was a mix of reactions. Some cheered, others wept, and the media scrambled to capture every detail. Outside the courthouse, the scene was even more chaotic, with crowds of supporters, critics, and curious onlookers spilling into the streets. Signs, chants, and live news coverage amplified the moment, turning it into a global spectacle. The fallout was immediate. Within hours, new allegations surfaced, adding to the already overwhelming narrative. A civil suit filed by an anonymous male accuser claimed that Combs had taken him to a warehouse in Los Angeles in 2020, where drugs and physical altercations allegedly occurred. The suit also referenced personal items linked to the late Notorious B.I.G., raising questions about whether Combs used his connection to the rapper's legacy to lure or impress others. This lawsuit, coming on the heels of the courtroom drama, further eroded Combs' reputation, suggesting a pattern of behavior that extended beyond the charges he faced in court. Combs' legal team now faces a July 30th deadline to file motions for a new trial or a sentence reduction. However, the outburst in court, described by some as one of the most emotional breakdowns ever witnessed in a federal courtroom, may have damaged his case. Judges rarely look favorably on such displays, and the 35-year sentence reflects the court's belief in the credibility of the evidence and testimonies presented. The defense can argue that the sentence is too harsh or that certain evidence should be reconsidered, but the gravity of the charges and the strength of the prosecution's case make such efforts an uphill battle. The broader context of Combs' legal troubles cannot be ignored. Since 2023, he has faced dozens of lawsuits, beginning with a high-profile case from his former girlfriend, Cassandra "Cassie" Ventura, who accused him of rape, sex trafficking, and physical abuse. Though that case was settled quickly, it opened the floodgates for others, with over 100 accusers, including men and women, alleging similar misconduct. Testimonies from Ventura and another woman, identified only as Jane, were central to the criminal trial, detailing years of alleged coercion, violence, and manipulation. The prosecution's case leaned heavily on these accounts, supported by evidence like audio recordings and security footage, including a 2016 video showing Combs assaulting Ventura in a hotel hallway.